Imagine losing everything you've worked for, not to a bank robber or a cattle rustler, but to a smooth talking con artist. That's exactly what happened to Texas rancher Frank Norfleet in 1919, and he wasn't going to let it stand. After selling his ranch, Norfleet carried around roughly $45,000. That was a fortune at that time. It's about $872,000 right now. Now, his intention was to invest in oil. Instead, he became the target of a very sophisticated bunco gang. These are professional swindlers who specialize in very elaborate con schemes. But by the time Norfleet realized he'd been deceived, his life savings were all gone. And the local authorities investigated, but criminals operated across multiple states and even international borders back then, making arrests extremely difficult. Frustrated by a lack of progress, the 54-year-old rancher made his own decision. If the con man won't be found, I'll find him myself. And with no formal law enforcement training, Norfleet spent years studying the methods used by professional con artists. He learned their slang, their tricks, their elaborate scams they used to separate victims from their hard-earned money. He adopted aliases, occasionally used disguises, carried firearms for protection, and deliberately placed himself in situations where he could infiltrate the same criminal circle that had fooled him. Over the next 4 years, he followed that gang across the U.S., into Canada, and then over to England. Rather than acting alone, though, he built relationships with detectives, prosecutors, and local police wherever he went, providing leads that helped authorities locate members of the organization. And his persistence paid off. One by one, the men responsible for swindling him were arrested, prosecuted, or otherwise brought before the courts. Although he did not personally ever make an arrest, investigators widely credit Norfleet's relentless work with helping dismantle one of the era's most successful confidence gangs. He also recovered a substantial portion of the money they took from him. That was an extraordinary outcome that I don't even think he thought was going to happen. And it was an age when victims of financial fraud rarely ever saw their money again. News of the Texas rancher who hunted down the men who had cheated him spread across America. He became something of a celebrity, writing books, giving lectures, and teaching people how confidence scams work. His firsthand experience offered the public an unusual look into the psychology of professional con artists decades before modern fraud prevention would even exist. And more than a century later, Frank Norfleet's story remains one of the earliest examples of private citizens refusing to let organized crime go unanswered. Rather than accepting the devastating financial loss, he devoted a huge chunk of his life to tracking down the criminals that were responsible. Norfleet helped bring an international con ring to justice, and he transformed himself from a victim into one of the most unlikely crime fighters in U.S. history.